You wake up every morning to the same routine. Coffee in silence, checking your phone to see couples posting their perfect moments while you sit alone with your thoughts. The ache in your chest isn't just about being single. It's something deeper, something that whispers to you in those quiet moments when the world sleeps. There's that familiar heaviness that settles in during Sunday afternoons when everyone else seems to be sharing their lives with someone special, and you're left wondering if there's something fundamentally wrong with you for not having found that person yet. You've been told over and over that happiness comes through partnership, that fulfillment arrives when you find your other half, that a life lived alone is somehow a life half-lived. Every movie, every song, every social media post reinforces this belief that romantic love is the ultimate goal, the prize that makes everything else worthwhile. But what if everything you've been taught about love and completion was missing the most essential truth? What if the emptiness you feel isn't a sign that you need someone else, but a sacred invitation to discover something far more profound within yourself? What if the loneliness that keeps you awake at night isn't a curse to be escaped, but a doorway to be walked through? I know exactly what it's like to sit in that silence and wonder if you're broken, if you're somehow failing at the most basic human need for connection. I know what it's like to feel like you're watching life from the outside, like everyone else got a manual for happiness that somehow never reached you. But what I'm about to share with you today will change how you see solitude forever. Because the greatest spiritual teachers throughout history understood something that modern society has completely forgotten, something so revolutionary that it will transform your relationship with being alone from a source of suffering into a path of liberation. Mircea Eliade spent his life studying the deepest mysteries of human existence, traveling to remote corners of the world, studying ancient texts, interviewing shamans and mystics, and what he discovered about solitude will revolutionize how you understand your spiritual journey. Through his eyes, being alone isn't a failure or a temporary state waiting for improvement. It's the most direct pathway to encountering the sacred dimension of reality that most people never access because they're too busy avoiding the very emptiness that contains their spiritual potential. When Eliade examined ancient traditions across cultures, from the Celtic monks of Ireland to the Desert Fathers of Egypt, from the Tibetan hermits in their mountain caves to the Aboriginal walkabouts in the Australian wilderness, he found that every authentic spiritual transformation began with a deliberate separation from ordinary social life. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't because these traditions were antisocial or afraid of human connection. It was because they understood something about the nature of consciousness that we've completely forgotten in our modern world. The hermits in the desert, the monks in their cells, the shamans in their isolated vigils, the yogis in their forest retreats, they all understood that transcendence requires a fundamental break from the collective dream that keeps us asleep to our true nature. This isn't about becoming antisocial or rejecting love entirely. This is about recognizing that the deepest communion with the divine happens when we stop looking outside ourselves for completion and start listening to the sacred voice that can only be heard in solitude. Eliade called this voice the manifestation of the sacred in ordinary reality, and he discovered that it speaks most clearly when we're alone, when we're stripped of all the social roles and identities that normally define who we think we are. The sacred, according to Eliade, manifests itself through what he called hierophanies, moments when ordinary reality suddenly reveals its divine dimension, when the veil between worlds becomes so thin that we can see through to the eternal truth that underlies all existence. But here's what most people never realize. What Eliade discovered through decades of research into mystical traditions around the world. These profound encounters with the transcendent almost always happen when we're completely alone. Think about the most spiritually significant moments of your life, the times when you felt connected to something infinitely greater than yourself, when you felt like you were touching the very source of existence itself. Chances are, you were walking alone in nature, sitting in quiet contemplation, lying awake at night staring at the stars, or experiencing one of those mysterious moments when time seemed to stop and eternity opened before you like a flower. These weren't accidents, these were hierophanies, sacred manifestations that chose to reveal themselves precisely because you were alone, because your consciousness wasn't fragmented by the need to perform for another person, because you had created the kind of inner stillness where the divine can make itself known. Eliade understood that relationships, no matter how beautiful, create a constant layer of social identity that prevents us from accessing these deeper states of consciousness. when we're always defining ourselves in relation to another person, when we're constantly managing impressions and navigating emotional dynamics and trying to make someone else happy, we never discover who we truly are beyond all relationships, beyond all roles, beyond all the masks we wear to make others comfortable. We never access the part of ourselves that exists in pure relationship with the cosmos itself. In traditional societies, Eliade observed, the most spiritually advanced individuals were often those who had deliberately chosen isolation, not as an escape from life, but as a deeper engagement with the very essence of existence. The Celtic monks who retreated to tiny islands in the North Sea, living on nothing but fish and seaweed, spending their days in prayer and contemplation, they weren't running away from the world. They were diving so deeply into the nature of reality that they touched something eternal. The Hindu sadhus who wandered alone for decades with nothing but a begging bowl and a staff. The Buddhist hermits who spent years in mountain caves subsisting on wild plants and rainwater. The Christian anchorites who sealed themselves in tiny cells attached to churches, living on bread and water while dedicating their lives to communion with the divine. They weren't running away from life. They were running toward the most essential truth about existence. They understood that romantic love, while beautiful and meaningful in its own dimension, operates primarily in what Eliade called profane time, the ordinary experience of daily life that keeps us trapped in cycles of desire, attachment, jealousy, disappointment, and the constant anxiety of trying to maintain something that by its very nature is impermanent. But when we embrace sacred solitude, when we stop fighting the aloneness and start exploring it as a spiritual practice, we enter what he termed sacred time, where the eternal dimension of reality becomes accessible and transformation becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Sacred time isn't clock time. It's the timeless present where past and future collapse into a single eternal moment, where you exist not as someone's boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse, but as pure consciousness, exploring the mystery of its own existence. You know what touches me most when I read your messages? It's realizing that we're not alone in this search. If you're listening to me now and feel that emptiness, that sensation that something important is missing in your life, I want you to know that I understand exactly what you're going through. There were moments when I also felt completely disconnected from the sacred, lost in the midst of a routine that seemed to suck all the magic out of existence. That's why I want to ask you a very direct question. What was the last moment you felt there was something greater than yourself present in your life? It could have been contemplating a sunset, listening to music, or simply in an instant of silence. If you feel comfortable, write in the comments, I miss the sacred in my daily life, and briefly tell when that last moment was. Your story might be exactly what someone needs to read today to feel less alone in this journey. And I promise I'll read each comment with the care it deserves. Eliade's concept of the axis mundi, the sacred center that connects earth to heaven, takes on profound meaning when we understand solitude as a spiritual practice. In ancient traditions, this cosmic axis was often represented by a mountain, a tree, or a temple where the divine and human worlds intersected. But the most powerful axis mundi isn't a physical location. It's the centered consciousness that emerges when we stop seeking validation from others and start cultivating our direct relationship with the sacred. When you're alone, truly alone without the distractions of constant communication and social media, something extraordinary begins to happen. The noise of other people's expectations starts to fade, the endless chatter of social anxiety quiets down, and gradually, you begin to hear the voice that has been waiting your entire life for you to listen. This voice doesn't speak in words. It speaks in intuitions and sudden insights, in moments of clarity that arrive like gifts from a dimension beyond ordinary thinking. Modern culture has created what Eliade would recognize as a form of collective possession, where people are so afraid of being alone that they'll accept relationships that diminish rather than elevate their spiritual potential. We've been programmed to believe that single means incomplete, that solo means lonely, that solitude equals isolation. Social media has made this programming even more intense, with algorithms designed to show us endless images of apparently perfect couples, making us feel like everyone else has figured out the secret to happiness that we're somehow missing. Dating apps promise connection but deliver endless superficial encounters that leave us feeling more empty than before. The entertainment industry creates romantic fantasies that have nothing to do with the reality of human relationships. but everything to do with keeping us dissatisfied with whatever we currently have. We're surrounded by messages that our worth as human beings depends on our ability to attract and maintain a romantic partnership, that a life lived alone is somehow a failed life, that the highest goal of human existence is to find someone who will make us feel complete. But Eliade's research revealed the opposite truth. The greatest spiritual achievements in human history were accomplished by individuals who had the courage to step away from social conventions and explore the infinite landscape of inner reality. The mystics, the visionaries, the teachers who changed the world, they all discovered that authentic power comes not from romantic partnerships, but from the marriage between their conscious awareness and the divine presence that dwells in the depths of being. They found that the love they were seeking outside themselves was already present within themselves, infinite and inexhaustible, waiting to be discovered through the kind of deep inner exploration that can only happen in solitude. Consider how differently your life might unfold if you stopped seeing your single status as a problem to be solved and started recognizing it as a sacred opportunity that most people never receive. Most people spend their entire lives moving from one relationship to another, never spending enough time alone to discover who they actually are beneath all the roles they play for others. They never develop the kind of inner resources that make solitude enjoyable rather than frightening. They never cultivate the capacity for self-companionship that turns alone time into the most precious part of their day. Instead of scrolling through dating apps looking for someone to complete you, what if you use that time to develop the kind of inner stillness where revelation becomes possible? Instead of spending your evening swiping through profiles of strangers, hoping one of them might be the answer to your loneliness, what if you spent those hours reading books that transform your understanding of reality, practicing meditation that opens doorways to transcendent states of consciousness, engaging in creative activities that put you in direct contact with the source of inspiration itself? Instead of feeling anxious about being alone on weekends, what if you created rituals of solitude that open doorways to transcendent experience? Instead of seeing Saturday night alone as evidence of your social failure, what if you recognized it as an opportunity for the kind of deep spiritual practice that changes everything about how you experience existence? Eliade documented countless traditions where individuals deliberately chose celibacy and isolation, not because they were afraid of love, but because they were so in love with the divine mystery that everything else became secondary. They understood that romantic attachment, while sweet and comforting, can become a golden cage that prevents the soul from soaring into the unlimited freedom of pure consciousness. The myth of eternal return, one of Eliade's central insights, suggests that spiritual growth happens through cycles of separation and return, death and rebirth, solitude and integration. When you embrace being single as a spiritual practice rather than a temporary inconvenience, you align yourself with this ancient rhythm of transformation. Each period of aloneness becomes an opportunity to die to old versions of yourself and be reborn at a higher level of awareness. Each moment of solitude becomes a chance to practice the ultimate relationship, the one between your finite personality and the infinite spirit that is your true identity. This isn't about rejecting human connection forever. This is about developing such a strong foundation in sacred solitude that when you do choose to share your life with another, you're offering wholeness rather than seeking it, giving love rather than demanding it, bringing presence rather than pursuing distraction. If you really want to understand the transformative power of embracing solitude, take a moment right now to hit the like button, not because I need the validation, but because every like is a small declaration that you're ready to question society's assumptions about what makes life meaningful. You're declaring that you're open to discovering forms of fulfillment that go far deeper than anything the external world can offer. You're saying yes to the possibility that your single life isn't empty space waiting to be filled, but sacred space where the most profound mysteries can unfold. The archetypal patterns that Eliade identified across cultures consistently show that the hero's journey always begins with a departure from ordinary social life. Whether it's the Buddha leaving his palace, Jesus going into the desert, or countless shamanic initiations that require separation from the tribe, the pattern is universal. Transcendence requires solitude, and solitude reveals transcendence. In our modern context, choosing to remain single while everyone around you is coupling up requires the same kind of courage that ancient spiritual seekers needed to leave their comfortable lives and venture into unknown territory. You're choosing to trust that there's something more meaningful than social approval, something more satisfying than romantic validation, something more real than the temporary highs of new relationships. Think about the quality of presence you develop when you're not constantly managing another person's emotions, expectations, and needs. Notice how differently you move through the world when you're not performing the role of girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse, but simply existing as pure awareness exploring reality. Eliade would say that this is when you become most available for hierophanic experiences, those sudden breakthroughs when ordinary moments reveal their sacred dimension. The sunset you watch alone penetrates deeper into your consciousness because there's no one to impress with your poetic observations. The book you read in solitude transforms you more completely because you're not filtering insights through someone else's perspective. The meditation you practice without explaining it to a partner reaches levels of stillness that would be impossible if you were always accommodating another person's schedule and preferences. Sacred space, according to Eliade, is qualitatively different from ordinary space, marked by heightened meaning and transformative potential. When you stop trying to make your living space accommodate a relationship that doesn't exist yet, something beautiful happens. Your home becomes a temple, your daily routines become rituals, your solitary meals become communion with the divine presence that's always available, but rarely accessed. You arrange your environment according to what nurtures your soul, rather than what impresses potential partners. You develop rhythms of living that honor your authentic energy patterns rather than conforming to social expectations about how couples should behave. You create a sanctuary where your spirit can unfold without constantly checking whether someone else finds your authentic self attractive or acceptable. The regeneration through ritual that Eliade identified in traditional cultures becomes deeply personal when practiced in solitude. Morning coffee becomes a sacred pause. Evening walks become walking meditation. Weekend solitude becomes a retreat into the essential self that exists beyond all relationships. These aren't consolation prizes for not having a partner. These are the very practices that mystics throughout history used to access states of consciousness that most people never experience. You're not missing out on real life by being single. You're participating in the most real aspect of existence, the direct encounter with being itself that happens when all social roles fall away and only pure awareness remains. The nostalgia for lost paradise that Eliade wrote about takes on new meaning when we understand that the paradise we're seeking isn't in the past or in some future relationship, but in the timeless present that becomes accessible through contemplative solitude. Every moment you spend fully present with yourself, without the distraction of managing someone else's presence, is a moment of return to the primordial state of wholeness that you were born with. The Garden of Eden isn't a place you lost. It's a state of consciousness you can reclaim by stopping the constant search for external completion and recognizing that you are already what you've been looking for. This isn't about becoming a hermit or rejecting human connection entirely. Eliade understood that authentic spiritual development creates the capacity for deeper relationship, not the inability to relate. When you've done the inner work that solitude makes possible, when you've developed the kind of self-awareness that can only emerge through extended periods of alone time, when you've discovered the inexhaustible source of love and creativity that exists within your own consciousness, then you have something real to offer another person. But until you've found that inner completion, romantic relationships often become desperate attempts to escape the very emptiness that contains your greatest spiritual potential. Consider the possibility that your single status isn't a problem to be solved, but a calling to be answered. What if the universe is inviting you to explore dimensions of existence that coupled people rarely access? What if your solitude is preparing you for a level of spiritual maturity that will eventually make you capable of relationships based on wholeness rather than neediness, on love rather than attachment, on presence rather than possession? What if every moment you spend alone is actually a moment of communion with the divine aspect of your own nature that can never be touched by another person because it is the source from which all love flows? The initiation rites that Eliade studied across cultures always involved a period of isolation where the initiate died to their old identity and was reborn into a higher level of consciousness. Your single life is your initiation. Every night you go to bed alone is a little death to the social self that seeks validation through relationship status. Every morning you wake up and choose to embrace your solitude is a resurrection into a more authentic version of yourself. Every moment you resist the pressure to couple up just to avoid being different is a victory for the part of your soul that knows its true value doesn't depend on external recognition. The cosmogony, the creation of the world that happens at the beginning of sacred time, is something you participate in every time you create meaning from solitude, rather than seeking meaning through relationship. You're not waiting for your life to begin when you meet the right person. You're actively creating a life so rich and meaningful that adding another person would need to enhance rather than complete what you've built. You're discovering that the universe you explore through contemplative solitude is more vast and mysterious than any universe you could explore through romantic partnership, because it includes everything that relationship includes, plus infinite dimensions that can only be accessed alone. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you recognizes that there's a different path, a deeper way to understand your own spiritual journey. I know what it's like to feel lost amid so much noise of the modern world, seeking answers that always seem to slip through your fingers. That's why I created this space, this refuge, where we can explore together the ancient wisdom that still pulses alive in our hearts. When you subscribe to this channel, you're not just clicking a button, you're joining a community of people who, like you, feel that life has deeper layers waiting to be discovered. Here you'll find not just knowledge, but genuine embrace for your thirst for meaning. Subscribe now and be part of this journey of rediscovering the sacred in everyday life. Your soul deserves this gift. The ultimate teaching that emerges from Eliade's understanding of sacred solitude is that transcendence isn't something that happens to you when external conditions align perfectly. Transcendence is something that happens through you when you stop waiting for external conditions to change and start exploring the infinite richness of your own consciousness. Being single isn't the second best option while you wait for relationship to arrive. Being single, consciously embraced as a spiritual practice, is the most direct path to discovering that you are already whole. You are already loved by the universe itself, and you already contain everything you need to live a life of profound meaning and joy. The sacred isn't hiding in some future romance. The sacred is hidden in the solitude you've been running away from, and it's been waiting your entire life for you to turn toward it with the same devotion that most people reserve for their search for the perfect partner. When you make this turn, when you stop seeing aloneness as emptiness and start experiencing it as fullness, when you stop treating solitude as a problem and start approaching it as a practice, everything changes. The anxiety that used to accompany your single status transforms into excitement about what you might discover in the depths of your own being. The loneliness that used to feel like a wound becomes curiosity about the vast inner landscape that most people never explore. The fear that you're missing out on real life gives way to the recognition that you're participating in the most real dimension of existence, the eternal present, where your individual consciousness touches the infinite consciousness from which everything emerges. This isn't about convincing yourself that you don't want relationship. This is about discovering such richness in your inner life that relationship becomes a choice rather than a desperate need, an enhancement rather than a requirement, a joy rather than a salvation. Today, right now, you have a choice that will shape the rest of your spiritual journey. You can continue believing that your single life is incomplete, temporary, a problem to be solved through dating apps and social events and the endless, exhausting search for someone to make you whole. You can keep scrolling through social media feeling inadequate because everyone else seems to have found what you're missing. Keep going to bed lonely and waking up with that familiar ache in your chest. Keep waiting for your real life to begin when the right person finally appears. Or you can recognize this moment as the beginning of the most profound adventure possible, the journey into the sacred dimension of your own being that has been waiting forever for you to stop looking elsewhere and start looking within. You can begin to see your solitude not as a consolation prize, but as the grand prize, not as the thing you endure while waiting for something better, but as the very condition that makes the deepest transformation possible. You can start to understand that every great spiritual teacher throughout history had to walk this path alone, that every profound realization about the nature of existence came through the kind of inner exploration that can only happen when you stop performing for others and start being authentic with yourself. Every moment of aloneness becomes an opportunity for communion with the infinite mystery that you are. Every quiet evening becomes a chance to practice the ultimate relationship, the one between your finite awareness and the unlimited consciousness that is your true identity. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that solitude isn't loneliness, that being single isn't being incomplete, that the path to transcendence has always been walked alone, and that the greatest love story you'll ever experience is the one between your conscious awareness and the divine mystery that you are. Your single life isn't empty space waiting to be filled by another person. It's sacred space where the most profound discoveries can be made, where the deepest healing can happen, where the most authentic version of yourself can finally emerge from behind all the masks you've been wearing to try to make others love you. Sacred space is where miracles happen, and your solitude is sacred space.